Coach, after the game on Saturday, after that final kneel down, it appeared like you said something to Jake Waters. I was just curious after that win over Oklahoma, after that kneel down, what did you say to him?
Well, I think you were probably, if it was after the game, I was, telling him how pleased I was with a variety of different things that he did. But I think what you probably are alluding to is we still had a snap or two left in the game when I called him over, and just told him to remember that when he took the snap, not to take the knee until he had to, just to run more time on the clock. That was it.
Just an operational thing.
Yes.
It appears like he comes off arguably his best back-to-back games since he's been at K-State with Texas Tech and Oklahoma, at least number-wise. When you look at Jake right now and understanding that every day he's trying to get a little bit better, when you look at him, what do you see in him? I mean, maybe something you see in his eyes or just watching him in the pocket?
Well, as I've said often in here, I see a young guy that is committed to becoming a better player and works diligently at it, studies the game, has made that improvement, has gained more and more confidence about his capabilities in all facets of the game, and I think, as I've said before, I think over a period of time, it goes with the experience aspect of it. And he's, started whatever it is, 18, 19 games for us. And if you're committed to that continued improvement, then, that experience is very beneficial to you. So I don't know what the question was, but he's a good player.
One other thing, I remember sitting here in the past, 2002 or 2003, you talked about L. Roberson being one of the toughest quarterbacks you'd had. Same goes for Colin.
Yeah.
How tough is Jake Waters, and where does he fit on that line with those guys?
Well, I think Jake is right up there. In fact, it's interesting that you say that. After the ball game in the locker room, I identified two youngsters that. Well, actually more than that, three youngsters for a variety of different reasons about their degree of physical and mental toughness that I had a great appreciation for. One was Jonathan Truman, and one was Jake Waters, and because they are, they're tough young guys, and off the field they're as nice and well-mannered and polite and selfless as anybody you'll ever find. But you put them on the field, and there's that degree of toughness that's significant, to play the game.
Coach, after watching the film of that last goal line stand by your defense, can you just talk about how all the pieces fell into place on that 3 straight plays and how impressive that was?
Well, I mean, it was impressive. I mean, I think our players did a great job because Oklahoma didn't have any trouble getting the ball down there. But I thought we did awfully well. I mean, we played hard. I mean, our guys gave up no ground up front. I was proud of our defensive front. I thought they did extremely well. We were probably at a little bit of advantage as Oklahoma had 2 of the players that normally would be in their goal line package that were out, at that particular point in time. So that may have helped a little bit too. But our guys, stood in there and, against some pretty big and pretty doggone good offensive linemen as well.
When you evaluate Jake on film, I'm just curious, what is it about his game this year that you've been most impressed with?
I think it's broad-based. I don't think there's one single thing. If there was one single thing, it's just, the fact that what I was addressing a moment ago is that, through the experience, he has gained greater confidence in his capabilities as it fits into the system. And so, maybe the confidence in doing what he's doing might be, at least one of the factors that I would consider, in answering the question.
And the other guy you mentioned there is one of the toughest people you've been around was Jonathan. You obviously felt pretty pleased with him after the game with your answer. I was just curious, is your what's your relationship with Jonathan like as a senior that he's been through the program like he has?
Well, I hope it's a good relationship. I think it is. He's, one of our players. Good young guy, does everything that you ask him to do and does it as well as he possibly can. And I enjoy, our dialogue, when we have that opportunity. He's a good leader. I appreciate his leadership, and he's, he does it in a kind of like Jake, we've talked about that before. It's kind of the same way, but, and when it's necessary, he'll step forward. But yeah, I think we have an excellent relationship.
Coach, you were able to get 2 big plays on the ground, and that ended up being nice difference makers for you. A long run from Jake and also one from DeMarcus.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a sigh of relief to see that multiple big plays kind of unfold?
Well, I mean, it was. We had a couple of substantial gains in the passing game as well. But we had the 50-plus yarder with Jake, and we had the 30-plus yarder with DMAC. And that's something that has been instrumental in my dialogue with our team, is that we need to create big plays offensively, certainly defensively as well. But from an offensive standpoint, you just don't like to put yourself in that position where you got to go 80 yards, 4 and 5 yards at a clip. You need some of those breakaway runs or throws, and fortunately we got some. So yes, I mean the answer is that it was appropriate, it was good, it was a positive thing. Sure.
When you look at the rest of the running game, 30 carries for approximately 69 yards, does that come as alarming for you?
Well, that's the way I project it and present it to our players. You take away, which you can't because they were in there, but you take away those major plays, and it it reduces your yards per attempt considerably, and those are the things that we have to become much better at. So, and that's not an easy thing to do against good defensive front people like Oklahoma, like Texas, et cetera. So we've got our work cut out for us.
And what is it about this Texas defense that's able to limit the run game, and is it just kind of their physical nature up front?
Well, I think yes. I mean, they're it's probably as good a front four as you'll find in the game today. Big, physical, run well. You take a guy like Malcolm Brown. I mean, they got a lot of Malcolm Browns, but he can. He's 320 pounds, something like that, but runs probably 4.7, 40. I mean, he's athletic. He can do all of it. He can knock you around and then run you down when you try to run away from him. So, they just have a very, just what we said, physical and mobile, athletic, front, and that makes it hard to run on.
Coach, Luke Hayes came here as primarily a left tackle. Can you talk about, through 6 games, how you've seen him really adjust to that right guard position, and what is it maybe about him that allowed him to adjust or keep continuing to grow at a new position like that?
I think he's probably more natural as an inside player. I mean, his physical capabilities probably lean towards playing as an inside player. He's made progress. He's grasped the system, better and better. Still makes mistakes, but fewer and fewer as we go. Very conscientious about what he does. Hard worker, good young guy. Just tries to do everything the right way.
And then after seeing film, can you kind of assess how you thought your offensive line played as a whole on Saturday against Oklahoma?
Well, I think we've got improvement still to make. A lot of improvement. We gave up 3 sacks, I think, and that wasn't all on our offensive line. What I was, pleased with, really only had 1 penalty, and that was more of a coaching mistake. I won't even get into that. But in reality, they were not penalized, and that's being in that environment down there with so much noise, and it's so easy to get discombobulated with cadence and snap count and communication, and they handled that part very well. So, they're becoming a little bit more seasoned. Sure.
What stands out about this Texas offense when you look at them on film?
Well, a little bit of everything. Obviously they have 2 very fine running backs. They've been in the system for a long time. Shipley, I've always, admired him. He's a young guy, just makes plays. Always does, always has. Can do so many things. He can catch it. He can run great routes. He can throw it. He can run the ball in reverses and stuff. I mean, he can do all of it. Harris has really come into play. Young. Wide receiver, and has made some tremendous plays. One to help him win the ball game last week. And the other receiver, Johnson, is he's a 4-4 guy, so he can run awfully well. But the guy that's really come front and center has been the quarterback, and you just see the progress that he has made, and he's a talented young guy. He's extremely capable. His numbers, I mean, it just shows you what the experience will do in a particular system, and he's growing rapidly. Last 2 ball games, he's accumulated right at even number. It's interesting, but he's accumulated 800 yards of total offense in the last 2 ball games, and they utilize him in a lot of different ways. He's invested in the quarterback run game and does that well. And of course, he's big as most linemen, so he's not an easy guy to bring down by any stretch of the imagination, and he can. So he really gives it that added dimension. I've always been a big fan of the quote-unquote dual threat quarterback type guys, and he's kind of the epitome of that.
When you watch film, I'm sure you watched multiple games of him. Has it been a drastic improvement for Swopes, since that BYU game all the way up until now?
Well, I think you see it as I don't know about drastic. I think it's been gradual, and he's just gotten better and better and better game in and game out.
Bill, back to Jake for just a second. On the long run Saturday against Oklahoma, I know you may not necessarily coach your guys this, but when it becomes apparent that he's going to get tackled, did you want him to get down, and do you think he's done a good job of keeping himself out of harm's way?
He was probably in a difficult situation to do that because he was out in front, and so it was all coming this way, and so it was that's a little. I mean, if you slide, somebody's probably going to hit you right in the head from behind. I mean, that was a difficult situation to be in order to make that decision. But I think he's done a pretty good job of being able to not take the unnecessary hits.
Charlie Strong has said that when he got the job at Louisville that he gave you a call to get some advice. And can you recall maybe what you said to him, and how common is that for other young coaches to seek you out?
Oh, I'm sure it's pretty common. I don't, in all honesty, can't tell you that I remember. That's been a while. Exactly what I said. Probably what I say to anybody would. There's a reason why you're there. So be who you are. And do it the way you believe in doing it. So, but I really don't know.
Record-wise, it's pretty clear that Texas isn't quite where they want to be, but they've shown some glimpses of breaking through here in recent games. Can you assess maybe what you expected to see from Charlie's program at Texas and maybe where they are now 6 games into the season?
Well, I had, no idea. I mean, I didn't spend any time trying to define, where I would project, a program to be. All of our work with the University of Texas since Coach Strong and his staff have arrived there is just to assess, what it is that they do from a schematic standpoint, offensively and defensively, and in special teams, and that's really, that's the only place I've invested my thoughts.
Coach, how difficult was to find a guy like Jake who you mentioned he's physically tough, he's mentally tough, but he also remains humble?
Well, but that's, that's kind of that value system that becomes significant. I just got off the radio with Sirius and was asked a somewhat similar question. It's just it is. It's an overused word by me. Values, but as I've said so many times, we're not going to. We want young people to to have that kind of a value system. That all those 16 goals won't go through it, and Jake does, and as I said so many times, it's not rocket science. It's what when you become a father, those are the things that you're going to try to teach your son or daughter, and that's just the investment that we make in trying to help young people become successful in football and anything else in their life. And it's of great value to us to have those young guys and to be able to mold some young people in that direction.
Coach, I was curious as to what it would be like for you this week with Texas and not coaching against Mac. And have you talked to him recently? And I guess maybe have you seen any of his TV work? And if so, what do you think of it?
Well, I did see. I haven't talked to Mac for a while. We've texted back and forth a little bit. Newfound deal. But I did see him not too long ago for a brief moment. Because they go all day, and I thought he did pretty doggone good. I shared that with him. He laughed on, if you can laugh on Twitter, he laughed on, or not Twitter, what did I say, texting, yeah, with a text. So.
Coach, going back to, that rattled me, you texting, the defense on Saturday. They gave up a lot of yards, but they did have the big stand at the end. They did have 2 interceptions that might have represented a 14-point swing. Right. How do you define their performance? I don't really like the bend but don't break phrase, but is that what they did?
Well, it was evident that we didn't play nearly as well as that we're capable of, and we needed to. And you can't sugarcoat that. I mean, that's just the way it is. We made positive things happen when we had to. But as I said to our team, and this is true in a lot of areas, not just on defense, but we can't pick and choose those times. We can't wait until they put ourselves in that kind of a situation. We've got to make those kind of plays and with consistency over a period of time. I mean, as I said, Oklahoma didn't have any trouble getting the ball, down on the 1 yard line, but I was again, by the same token, that against a very, very fine offensive football team in Oklahoma, to be able to stop them under any circumstances down there going in is not an easy task. So my hat goes off to them, and so they proved that they can do it, but you got to do it all the time, and that wasn't the case.
I believe Texas defense has like 24 sacks and 11 interceptions. Can you just talk about how those two areas play off each other and kind of the cause and effect?
Well, they're 1 and 2 in the conference in those areas, and they have, it has major impact. Obviously, one of our goals every week is not to give up lost yardage plays, and sacks obviously or lost yardage plays hurt us this last week. With 3 sacks. We had a total this last week. We had a total of, I think it was 7 lost yardage plays, with 4 in the running game and 3 in the passing game for a minus 30 yards, and so that's about 4 plus yards per snap, and you put those 4 yards into your down and distance routine, and that puts you at 2nd and 6, instead of first and or 2nd and 14, whatever the case may be, and there's a major difference, and that what allows you to keep drives alive, and we struggled a little bit with that, so lost yardage plays, sacks, are major in ball games to be able to avoid that. The turnovers, we didn't have any turnovers, and I appreciate that a great deal. That's a great deal of discipline. The penalties, we didn't get penalized, as I mentioned before. But sacks and turnovers are critical areas. So they, we have to try to alter those numbers a little bit, because 11 is a pretty big number right now. Like I said, it's first or second in the conference, and 24 is sacks is a pretty large number, and it is 1 or 2 in the conference as well. So just obvious, I think. It's important.
Travis Britt's got some extra attention for the block extra point on Saturday, but he's obviously been working hard, playing well in the interior of the defensive line. Just curious, what have you been most pleased with from that standpoint this season with him?
Well, I think because Travis is, Travis has always been kind of a lighthearted young guy, and he's really got invested emotionally and mentally in his preparation and trying to improve. Again, he's made that investment. He's kind of moved in that direction, and wants to be better. Takes a great deal of pride in what he does. I like the idea that he, it's in this day and age, to find, because guys are playing a lot of snaps, and to be heavily invested in some aspect of the kicking game, which Travis is. He takes a lot of pride in that, and that's important to him, and he works very diligently at trying to execute the fundamentals and the techniques to do some of those things, and so and that's carried over and helped him, I think, defensively as well. So.
Coach, homecoming week here at Kansas State, the theme is coast to coast. I was just curious, coast to coast, what would you like the nation to know about this Kansas State team at this particular point in time?
Well, that they appreciate all the people coast to coast that support the program. We've got Kansas State people, virtually anywhere and everywhere. And, I'm fortunate to hear from them on, a regular basis, and people are very gracious, and they care about their university, and they care about our program, and that's, in my way of thinking, in a lot of cases you don't see them, but they're there, and they're there, and they make themselves known and heard, and our players appreciate that a great deal. So.
Do you feel like the hunger of this team has revved up even more, given the fact that this team is currently the only one in the Big 12 without a league loss?
Well, I would like to think that it's ongoing and continual, regardless of what your win-loss record is, or where you happen to stand in somebody's rankings or conference. But I'm not oblivious to it, and I know they read, they understand where they are, and I think they're enthused about that, and rightfully so, and should be. But again, you begin taking things for granted, and that gets you in trouble, and you begin thinking about where you are as opposed to where it is we need to go. That gets you in trouble as well. So.
Any timetable on Travis Green?
Beg your pardon?
On Travis Green, any timetable on his return?
No.
Anything else? How did Jake respond to the day after just playing through all that pain? Has it been like with Colin 2 years ago, or has he responded healthier?
Oh, he responds fine. You know, he's that goes along with what I was saying. I mean, he's a tough young guy, and but he came out fine.